Hi guys, welcome back to another video. You join me today on a very cold December morning, but I'm not going to stand here and complain because today is a good day. Now why is it a good day? Because today I am assembling the engines to go back into the Corrado. Fingers crossed for the last time. So what we have here is two VR6 engines and two O2M gearboxes. Both have been cleaned, degreased and painted with some POR 15 in silver. The reason for doing it in silver is I wanted a lighter colour so that I could see if there's any oil spills or leaks or whatever. Just makes it a lot easier to identify problems when it's in the car. And to a degree, once you start degreasing stuff and cleaning them, you start thinking to yourself, well, it's clean now, so I might as well give it a paint because it's the only opportunity I'm going to have to do it. I don't think I've gone too far because I've just done literally just the block and the gearbox. All the ancillaries and stuff, I've just given them a clean. I haven't started painting all the brackets and all that stuff, so it's purposeful. It's clean, but it's purposeful. What else have we got here? We've got a lot of gaskets, obviously same on both sides. So we've got a brand new head gasket with a decompression plate, sump and rocker cover gaskets, inlet and exhaust gaskets, new head bolts, new engine mounts, new timing chain kit, crankshaft seals both sides, new metal water pump, oil cooler seals, oil filler housing seals, some dowel pins for the blocks, and some 3-bond, which is the same as Honda Bond HT, which is used for assembling the timing chain covers onto the block. And that's about it. So I think I've got everything I need to get these engines assembled again. So that's what hopefully the outcome of this video is going to be. Fingers crossed. But we will see. So for now, I'll stop waffling on and try and get on with some work, and you guys enjoy the warmth and the comfort of your own home, and we'll see what happens at the end of this video. Okay, so I have cleaned all the mating faces, so the block surface is now nice and clean. I've sanded it down with, I think, 240 grit to start with, then finishing up with 400. I've cleaned all the bores and the piston crowns. I've blown out all the bolt holes, all the waterways, and I have put a little bit of oil in the bores, and then finally I've fitted the dowels. So same for that engine as it is for that one. And then on the cylinder heads, I've just gone over the faces again, given them a clean and a degrease, blown out all the holes, just the valves, etc, etc. And then I've got my gaskets here, both of them with the metal is it metal layer gaskets, and in the middle is a decompression plate, and obviously the two gasket sides either side. I've sprayed them with copper grease simply because there is a little bit of pitting on some of the cylinder heads, so I think that will just help. Okay, bit of an update. So obviously the heads are back on and they're all torqued down. Started to fit some of the ancillaries like the oil cooler and filter housing, some of the knock sensors, what else? And I have changed the front crank seal on both engines. Cams are now back in, so the engine is not quite at TDC, it's a few degrees before, so obviously there's no interference with the valves and the piston crowns. So what I'm going to do now is start to do the chains, and no, first I need to torque down the cams, and then I can start to do the chains. So I'm going to crack on with that. Okay, so I've fitted the crank pulley and the block is now timed to TDC. I've locked in the cams, and obviously the cams now torqued down. I've removed the inner lower chain by removing the intermediate shaft sprocket, which is just down there. It's a 15mm bolt. So what I've done is I've cleaned the mating faces on the block and on the cover. So now what I'm going to do is install the lower chain. In terms of timing marks, you've got on the back of where the flywheel bolts to, there's a sprocket, and that sprocket's got like a flat edge on one of the teeth, which lines up with this mark on the crank. Obviously you've got the mark on the crankshaft pulley, this little V notch in the back of it, and then you've got these kind of grooves in the cams which should be facing up. So if those two are facing up, the crankshaft, there's a little mark, I'm sorry the light's crap here, but there's a little mark on the cover here that lines up with a V in the pulley, and then the last mark is obviously, as I mentioned earlier, that notch on the sprocket. That means it's all timed and correct. One thing to note, I guess, is on the intermediate shaft sprocket, it's keyed so it only goes on one way. Now there's a little notch just there which lines to a mark on the bottom, but there's also a mark on the top. So I guess don't stress if your mark is at the bottom rather than the top, because I know a lot of the literature and videos show that mark at the top. What it simply means is that obviously TDC on cylinder 1 can be at 2 revolutions of the crankshaft, if that makes sense. So on the first revolution, that mark's going to be at the top, and you're going to be at TDC on either the intake or the exhaust stroke, and then the second revolution of the crankshaft, that mark will be at the bottom, which is the opposite. If the inlet stroke was on the first one, it would be the exhaust stroke on the second one. So it doesn't really matter whether that notch is at the top or the bottom. So if you do find TDC and then come back to it and you see this notch at the bottom, don't stress, because there's a line at the bottom for that, and there's a line at the top depending on how many revolutions of the crankshaft you've turned it. I hope that made sense. It made sense to me anyway. So yeah, I'm going to put the bottom chain on now. Taking this sprocket off helps put that chain on, and then it also helps to put the upper chain on as well. So we'll get to that. Okay, so the lower chain's on. So you make sure your alignment marks are still there. So there's one on that notch tooth just there, and then that one there still lines up with the line on the back of the case. So you make sure all your tension is here. So it's taut along that edge and then loose along that edge. So when the tension goes in and pushes up against the chain, all the marks are still where they should be. So I've got a new tension here, the pin still installed. So I'm just going to bolt that in. Right, chains are now on. I did struggle a little bit getting this top chain on, simply because where I've got a head spacer in there, it does kind of stretch the chain a little bit and makes this guide rail a little bit close to the actual cover, cam chain cover. But it's on now, so I'm just going to go and seal up round here and put the bottom cover on. And I need to get a gasket O-ring for this before I put the top cover on, but we're looking good. So engines are now together, as you can see. Chains are on, covers are on, gearboxes are on, flywheels, clutch, etc, etc. That's all in, so we're basically good to go. So in the next video I'll probably be putting these back into the Corrado, and then we can start the final kind of fit and fabrication of inlet manifolds, all the pipe work, exhaust, etc, etc. So I'm quite looking forward to that, because that is kind of the home straight. Then it's just bodywork. In between that video, there may be a video coming on the BMW conversion, if I'm going to call it that. So if you've watched some of my previous videos, you'll have known that I'm putting a VR6 engine and mating it to a BMW gearbox, so I can put it in the 46 Coupe, which is hopefully my competition, amateur competition, should I say, car. Hopefully looking to enter Drift Cup next year, but probably knowing my timing is the year after, but we'll see. But I'm building an adapter plate to mate the VR6 engine to the BMW gearbox. But as a bit of an intermediary step, I was cutting the bell housing off a Passat gearbox and welding it to the BMW gearbox, just so I can work out clutch, flywheel spacing and sizing, etc, etc. I think that would be a little bit easier than waiting for the adapter plate, getting that finalised, and then doing all the work. This way I can start to do a bit of work on that stuff and get the engine stuff into the compact as like a test mule. Anyway, I'm waffling on. I'll leave it there. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please feel free to hit the like button. Also subscribe if you want to see more updates, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, bye.